If you're hunting for a job in 2024 in the saturated market, the following scenario probably seems a little too familiar. You apply, you send your resume, and the next day you get an email back. You're excited. It says, "Thank you so much for your interest. After reviewing your work experience, unfortunately, we won't be moving forward at this time." Maybe even worse, they don't even email you back. All the internet resume tips are very subjective, and you probably didn't know how to optimize your resume to get it in front of the recruiter. I spent the last week studying 3 of the largest resume studies ever conducted, totaling 220 resumes. After analyzing these studies, I've reviewed the 6 key takeaways so that you don't have to review every 434,220 resumes to see what works versus what doesn't. These 3 studies are from Michael Tomaszewski, who studied 133,000 resumes, Claire Cervanonska, who studied 176,220 resumes, and Austin Belzak, who studied 484,000 resumes. Now, before we jump into this video, I'm gonna list out the 6 key takeaways, and then we'll go into each one specifically. Number 1 is the ATS, the application tracking software. Data shows that only 75% of resumes reach human eyes because they don't pass the ATS test. Now we're gonna cover how to optimize your resume, both for a human and the ATS, in these next 5 steps. Studies shows that you need to tailor your resume for each job. The average job description includes 43 keywords, and the average applicant uses 51% of those, averaging about 20 or so keywords in their resumes. You wanna make sure you're using the right length and format when creating your resume. 77% of employers say that job seekers should avoid a single-page resume. The ideal length is 475 to 600 words, and 80% of resumes fall outside of this range. You wanna use measurable results and certifications. Only 26 of resumes included measurable results, even though metrics make value clear to the employer. Avoid fluff and buzzwords. 51% of resumes contain fluff or buzzwords or improper pronoun usage, which dilutes their effectiveness. And the last but definitely not least point here is that you need to include a cover letter and a LinkedIn profile with your resume when applying. Research shows that including a comprehensive LinkedIn profile increases your chances of an interview by 71%, yet only 48% of resumes include a link to a LinkedIn profile whatsoever. And for the cover letter, 83% of recruiters find them valuable, though 45% of applicants skip the cover letter completely. So let's go back to the ATS in more depth. The application tracking software is used to analyze the hundreds of applicants that are applying to these jobs. Most of the time on LinkedIn, it says over 100 applicants, and how the hell are they gonna manage that if they don't have some software to help them? Once 100 resumes are thrown into the software, only 25% make it into the hiring manager's hands. It's proven that 97.4% of Fortune 500 companies use this software, along with 70% of large companies, 20% of small to mid-sized companies, 75% of recruiters use this tool. As I mentioned, if you follow these next steps, your resume will pass that ATS test. But a couple things I want to mention here. If you upload your resume as a Word doc and not a PDF, the ATS won't be able to read it. Another thing, don't ever include information in the header or footer. For the same reason, the ATS won't be able to read it. Number 2, as I mentioned, most candidates only include 51% of the keywords needed to pass the ATS system and impress the 63% of those employers who prefer a tailored resume. How do you tailor your resume for each job? So what you're gonna wanna do is copy the job description and paste it into one of the tools I have in the link below. And what that will do is pull the keywords from that job description that you need to include in your resume. You can then use a software like ChatGPT to paste your resume into it and say, include these keywords somewhere in my resume and incorporate it with the skills and responsibilities in my experience section. Number 3, you wanna make sure that your resume isn't too long or too short. Most resume tips out there say, make your resume as short as possible. But through this data, it's proven that 77% of employers don't prefer a one-page resume. What we found is that the ideal length is between 475 and 600 words, and that 80% of resumes fall outside of this range. From Clara's study, 2-page resumes are 2.9 more effective for a managerial role, and for an entry-level role, it's 1.4 times more effective. A pro tip here to help it pass the ATS with the format, a single column resume makes it more readable for the ATS. So it's advised not to have a super fancy resume with all these images and colors on it because you want it to be readable, but also attractive and not too basic. And when you're writing your resume, you want to make sure that you're using measurable accomplishments. In Austin Belzak's study, he found that 26% of candidates used measurable results, yet 36% of these resumes had 0 metrics whatsoever. By quantifying your achievements, i.e., increased savings by 17%. Your credibility boosts significantly because so many people rely on the resume. So if you have a quantifiable result, your value to that employer is then communicated much more clear and efficiently. Certifications can also be a very big part in communicating your value to that employer. Certifications are a verifiable way that you can prove you have the soft and technical skills, yet 25% of job seekers include them in their resume. You want to do everything you can to prove that you have the drive and experience to succeed in this role. Now, to keep your resume within the optimal length and make it as effective as possible, you need to avoid fluff and buzzwords. Thomas's study shows that 51% of resumes include fluff, buzzwords, and improper noun usage, which majorly dilutes their effectiveness. If your resume makes it to the hiring manager's hands, this is crazy, but the average hiring manager only looks at your resume for 6 seconds. So each word needs to be extremely valuable. You want to remove filler words like highly motivated or several, and use action verbs instead of nouns. So instead of saying was part of a team that increased savings by 17%, you want to say increased savings by 17% using that action verb as part of the result. And the last but not least, you want to make sure that you're including a LinkedIn link in your resume. Your LinkedIn can't be a resume of Joe Schmuck with a crappy headshot and a crappy banner. It has to be a comprehensive LinkedIn profile. Put time making your experience section look professional, get a professional headshot and banner. Make your headline powerful and not generic. By including your LinkedIn profile link in your resume, you'll increase interview chances by 71%. The craziest part about this is that half of job seekers don't even include a LinkedIn link in their resume. As far as a cover letter goes, I know how tempting it could be to skip it, especially because everyone out there says nobody reads them anyway, and there may be some truth to that. However, 43% of candidates completely skip the cover letter, and 83% of employers actually find them valuable. Whether or not they read the whole thing's a different story, but if you include a cover letter versus someone who doesn't, it shows that you put some more time into this and it makes you a more valuable candidate at the end of the day. If you want access to my resume, which I've used to land my first sales job with no college degree, it's also the same resume template that my dad has used to land all his sales jobs in the last 30 or 40 years he's been in sales. I have a download link in the link below. You could just copy it, and obviously you have to go through all these steps to make sure it's tailored to your life and your experiences. Comment what you need help with below. I'll see you on the next one.